How'd you like to be able to say your family owns the view? Because the Hearst family still do. They own 82,000 acres surrounding us. Now my problem is when I talk about our host, William Randolph Hearst, I get some blank stares these days because our host passed away in 1951. We're a little separated from who and what he was. So I like to give folks the Wikipedia version of his life. He's the only child of great wealth and power. His father, George, was a self-made millionaire. George Hearst, by the time he passed away in 1891, was said to be worth almost $20 million. We believe he might have been one of the richest men in the nation. But he got word in 1862 his mother was dying, so he went home to Missouri to see her one last time. And during the course of her final illness, he met the next-door neighbor's daughter, a lovely girl of 19 named Phoebe Apperson. George and Phoebe are going to elope. And George, by the way, is 41. Did mention the millionaire thing, right? Yeah. Kind of helps in these situations. They moved to San Francisco, California, and on April 29th, 1863, their only child, William, was born. William was born when Abraham Lincoln was President of the United States. The American Civil War was still an ongoing conflict, and in his lifespan of 88 years, this man would see 17 U.S. presidents, starting with Lincoln, ending with Harry S. Truman. So think of that huge arc of science, technology, and history that occurs in one man's lifetime. William would be brought down the coast about 1865. Mom and Dad are traveling by steamer, buying cattle land very cheaply because California's, oops, we don't go up those stairs, folks. There we go. Dad got you in trouble again. George complains he pays too much, and I think that if you find this little bargain in your journeys of California, you should come back and tell your tour guides about it. Because George Hearst bought 40,000 acres below, my friends. He spent $28,000. We're talking 70 cents an acre. And that includes the coastal access and the water and mineral rights. And in California, if you have your own water source, you got your own source of making money. You'll see a few displays of that today. Now, William's family built a little ranch house down at the bottom of the hill. It's hidden in the grove of eucalyptus trees. We can't see it from the road. But in the summer months, you're experiencing the summer pattern. Cooler, breezy, sometimes fogged-in conditions at the coast, and up here where it's sunny and warm. And they called this place Camp Hill. And I like to think that the Hearst family invented glamping. Are you familiar with that phrase, glamorous camping? The 1860s and 70s version's pretty posh. Huge canvas tents, elevated wooden platform floors, Persian carpets on the wooden floors. They have separate tents for dining, dressing, and sleeping. Pretty sure that's glamping, because I know it's not the Motel 6. William would spend his summers riding horses and exploring this part of the Central Coast, falling in love with it, really. As an adult, he would write a letter to his mother wherein he stated he would rather spend 1 month here than anywhere else on earth. And this is a young man with the wherewithal and resources to go anywhere and do anything. This is the place he loves the best. And he brings up the subject, we should build something more permanent than tents on the hill. And Mom and Dad don't think this is a good idea. His mother will confess in a letter to a friend she's concerned that Will get carried away. Ladies and gentlemen, Exhibit A. This is not Hearst Castle. This is a guest cottage. And in our case, it's the medium-sized bungalow called Casa del Sol. The House of the Sun is named because it has the western sky in its view, and you have the beautiful sunsets in the evening. And medium in Mr. Hearst world means 3 levels, 18 rooms, 3,600 square feet. Now for those 18 rooms, you'll get 8 bedrooms, 8 bathrooms, and 2 sitting rooms. You know, like you do. And medium because there is a larger... Enjoy it with your eyes. So my friends, this is what changeableness of mind means. The architect ends up building 3 different pools on the same spot in 12 years' time. This version of the Neptune pool ends up being 104 feet long across the longest part of the oval. And on the right-hand side, it's 10 feet or 3 meters, where we stand just over 1 meter at 3.5 feet deep, filled with 345,000 gallons of mountain spring water, or 1.3 million liters. Small problem here. Most of Mr. Hearst's guests will never use the pool. It's the 1920s, friends. They don't know how to swim. You see, swimming and sunbathing are not the leisure activities we think of today. Most guests, to be honest, they do not own a swimsuit. And I can't say as I blame them, in fact. Darling, do me a favor, don't lean against the marble. Thank you. Well, swimsuits of the era, got any idea what they look like? It's a one-piece tank suit, kind of sack-like for ladies and gentlemen, made of this marvelous material. 100% wool is correct. When you get out of the pool, you smell like a wet dog. It's kind of itchy. And girls, I'm sorry, but it's going to sag in all the wrong places when it's wet. That's the standard to the early 1930s. That's when we get the rise of artificial fibers like rayon and polyester. Questions about the pool before we move on today? Nobody even wants to know who gets to swim in it these days? Because to get there, you have to be in one of two categories. The first one's pretty easy. Guess the last name. Yep. Like I said, they own the 82,000 acres around us. The water source is on their lands. And they've always shared the water, even in the worst of droughts, so they have swimming privileges. But they have to make a reservation on the books. And they have to pay for our lifeguard and security staff, for liability and purposes. But it's pretty much a given. There's probably going to be a full bar and a catering truck over there. The other version, well, you got to buy your way in. We have a nonprofit called First Foundation at First Castle. Basic membership's $500, and that basic membership gets you access to the swim tickets, which are $1,000 each for one person to swim in the pool for 2 hours. You do get a fluffy towel as a souvenir. So those are the only fines. It's about $4,000. So buy that legal ticket if you really must swim. Now, I know you can't really capture the whole pool where we are, so I'm going to take you to a place we can. Up above that wooden door is a big balcony, and that balcony allows you to shoot down, get the entire pool in a single frame, and you'll even be able to tell where the deep and the shallow ends are. So let's go find out who has bad knees besides the tour guide. Smell the jasmine as we're climbing the stairs. It really is worth the climb. All right, friends, all the way up here. Here's your best view of the pool. This is where your best pictures are.
It is. It's a...
When Howard Carter made the great discovery of King Tutankhamun's tomb, and the whole world went nuts for anything that had an Egyptian thing. So he did as many collectors did. He bought things at auction. 3 were purchased at auction in New York, and the 4th one in London. And for the ladies, it's going to kick off a little fashion craze for you. This is where your flapper girl look comes from, ancient Egypt. They look at the carvings and paintings on the tomb walls. Girls start cutting their hair just short of shoulder length, giving themselves blunt bangs, outlining their eyes dramatically with a dark coal eyeliner. These are beauty tips from Egyptian royalty. And if you think of the flapper silhouette, that very sleek outline, that's the stylized pose carved into the tomb walls. So they're bringing back fashion trends from 3,000 years ago. Personally, I'm hoping they wait that long on gauchos from the 1970s. I was in high school then. It was not an attractive time to be a teenager. But up above me, that's what we've all come to see. Casa Grande awaits, and up here you may sit on marble benches and wicker chairs, and I have a drinking fountain for you. Best of all, we've got a mister going off underneath the magnolia tree. Let's go take advantage of all that.
I would put some
Yeah, but we've got the natural operating. To have a seat on the marble benches or in the wicker chairs. Right over there is a double drinking fountain. The lower one doesn't have much water pressure, but the other one is just fine. Get yourself some mountain spring water. It literally means the big house. It's a good title. The building you're looking at is nearly 70,000 square feet on the inside. It contains 115 rooms on 6 levels. That breaks down to 38 bedrooms, 42 bathrooms, 14 sitting rooms, 2 libraries. And an unusual feature in a California house, which I'm standing on, it's called a basement. The basement below is almost 15,000 square feet. It contains a wine cellar with a 10,000 bottle capacity and an unfinished 2-lane bowling alley. Mr. Hurst's parents, George and Phoebe, they didn't want their son building up here because they were worried he'd get carried away. In all honesty, this is supposed to be a 2-story entertaining hall with no bedrooms. Yeah, that didn't happen, did it? Now, I like to imagine we're guests of Mr. Hurst back in 1933. It's what we consider the heyday of the estate. So you and your friends and family are probably staying in one of the 20 guest bedrooms between the 3 bungalows. Should the weather take a turn, Mrs. O'Brien, the housekeeper, she's the one who decides where you stay. She'll take advantage of the fact of the 38 bedrooms in the main house, 22 are guest bedrooms. You wouldn't even have to share. Now, during the day, with weather like this, I bet you're going to be outdoors. You might be horseback riding. You might play tennis. Oh, you might want to wait for nightfall for that. There are lights on the court. You can play when it's cooled down a little bit. Or maybe you do know how to swim and you're taking a dip in one of the 2 pools. If all of that sounds too active, up on the 2nd floor is the small guest library with over 4,000 books. You can do as much or as little as you like, but your evenings belong to your host, and this will require social obligations of all of us. Now, in typical fashion here, when we dress for dinner, the men get off easy. It's just a jacket and tie. This isn't a tuxedo sort of place. This is California casual for the 20s and 30s. But ladies, you know it's more complicated for us, isn't it, always? Silk stockings, high heels, cocktail length dress. Did you bring a fur coat for evening wear here? No? Let the maid assign to you know there's a fur vault in the basement. It gets quite chilly once the sun goes down. Mr. Hurst won't want you to catch cold, so borrow a mink or a sable for the evening. Now, dressed in our best, we want to make a good first impression. We head through a pair of 16th century Spanish convent gates in for the first social obligation of the day. Cocktails and hors d'oeuvres before dinner. Convent gate is a Roman mosaic, parts of which date from the 2nd century after the Common Era. And as millions of visitors had walked directly over, it had taken quite a bit of damage from the foot traffic. We brought in our special conservator, Stravko, who had the daunting task. He had to take the whole thing apart. He had to number, label, and catalog each one of the small stones called the tesserae. He put everything back in order while making repairs. This process in total took 2.5 years. When he completed it, he told us he wasn't doing that again. He told us to not walk through the front door. So we're going to be going in through the north side, and when we turn the corner, you'll get more proof the place really is less than 50% complete, as Mr. Hurst stated in 1948, even after 28 years of construction. You have any questions before we head in? You just want to find out what's inside that big house? All right, let's go. I just wish it were cooler and not hot. I feel like I could dry my hair. We are closed only 3 days a year: Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's Day. With a over 2-year pause for COVID, of course. But that wasn't all our fault. It's been a long day. We lost the road. Did you notice the one-way traffic control? January 2021, we had an atmospheric river that dropped 24 inches of rain in 48 hours. And we had 27 culverts on the old road fail. And it dated from Hurst time. So they had to tear out the road, build a new culvert system, and then repave. And that's why we didn't open until May 11th of last year. And then this January, we had another atmospheric river come through, and one of those brand new culverts failed. And they put the job out to bid, and they haven't even picked a contractor for it yet. Sadly, the state always goes with the lowest bid. Anyone down? Watch your feet. It's very easy to get distracted and end up in the wrong place. You host about 700,000 people per year. This is why we don't use the front door. Oh, would you like to take that apart and put it all back together again? Would you want to do it more than once? I think he has a point. No one has to translate it. It's the same thing in every language of the world. But please keep coming all the way in, darlings, so we can get everybody out of the hot sun and into this much cooler space. There's a reason I was in a hurry to get in here. It's not air conditioned, but it's better. Sir, watch your feet. All of your family, watch your feet. Thank you. No, that's not a chimney.
What's a
Fireplace.
Yeah, fire.
Chimney's actually the thing behind it,
Oh, yes.
going all the way to the outside.
Were those like chairs?
Hmm?
Were those like chairs?
Let me answer that once I get everybody in. You're asking good questions. Let me just get everybody in the room first. Now, just to warn you, sometimes we get an ADA group and they'll come through that door down at your feet and those of your companions, and make sure the only thing that's seen is the blue-gray carpet underfoot. We cannot replace the teak wood ballroom floor in this room, so it's a real essential thing that we not walk on it. And welcome to the assembly room. The assembly room is the living heart of Casa Grande. This, by the way, is the second largest room in the house, just under 2,500 square feet. And I promise we're working our way up to the big one. Now, what I'm supposed to do in this room is lecture all of you good folks on art and history, but that's so not going to happen today. I'm going to work off of questions, and these young ladies have provided me with a couple of starters. First, they wanted to know about the weird little chairs that line this room. Do they look comfortable to you? They're not supposed to be. This is the back wall of a Catholic church in Italy, 15th century on this side of the room, 16th century on this side of the room. They're called a choir stall, and it's a spot in the church for members of the clergy or choir to sit or stand during parts of Mass when it's allowed. But in this room, they serve no purpose except as wall paneling. They're not comfortable to sit in. And Mr. Hurst has gone to great lengths to have custom-made furniture from Barker Brothers in downtown Los Angeles provide these overstuffed chairs and sofas for us. Isn't everyone in love with the summer slipcovers? I admit they're hideous, but they're designed to match the borders of the 16th century Scipio tapestries on the long walls. See the cherub, the fruit, the flowers? That's where the original inspiration is. These canvas covers go on in May and come off in October. It's for the months of the year when Mr. Hurst goes. It is, but it's a 16th century fireplace, and it's the third house it's been installed in. This is from the Chateau de Joux, which is in the Burgundy region of France near Dijon. The Danglars family sold it to an American architect named Stanford White. Now, he's probably best known as the original designer of Madison Square Garden, but he put it in the collection of a New York financier by the name of Charles Barney. But after Barney's rather tragic end, his house gets dismantled and ends up on the auction block. And this ends up as a photograph in an auction catalog. And Mr. Hurst was so pleased when he was informed that he was the highest bidder. He cabled our architect, Julia Morgan, and stated, "Miss Morgan, I have managed to secure the Barney mantle. I trust you will build a hall worthy to receive it." Did she do okay? Do you know what the concept is with mantle over mantle? You don't need logs, you need a tree for that hearth. And long after the flames have died, this stone overmantle, it retains the heat and it radiates into a big room like this. It's central heating for the 15th and 16th century. But it's not the big fireplace, that one's in the next room. What else in the room catches your eye? What do you want to know more about? Working with mythological allegories. Over here we have Hercules, or Heracles in the Greek, leaning back on the lion's skin from Numeria. And over here, that embodies strength. We have the staff with the serpent coiled around it, the ancient symbol of medicine and healing. Mm-hmm. Over here we have Zeus, or Jupiter, with the scales of justice being shown to him. So justice on offer. This one's my favorite back here in the corner. You have two life-size figures and this diminutive figure in the middle. That's us, that's mankind. And that's the guides bestowing wisdom in the form of a piece of pizza. Doesn't it look like a piece of pizza? Yeah. It does. So I got to have a little fun with this, folks. Otherwise, it just gets a little bit too ponderous. What else in the room catches your eye? These are the only four from the 16th century set that are still intact. There's a fifth fragmentary piece in a museum in Ohio. But if you would like to see a complete set of 10, grab your passport and go visit the Louvre. They have an 18th century set of weavings, a complete set of 10. But the colors don't match. Most of the images are reversed. And between the panels, the Louvre has hung a sign that states these are reproductions of the originals, which hang in a museum in San Simeon, California. So Mr. Hurst, if the Louvre has copies of your stuff, you've got some good stuff. Anything else? The phrase holy roller. I could be reaching more. Did anyone get to see the movie before you came up today? Okay, sounds like about half did, but there is a free movie. And they kind of leave out a few things. They never mention Mr. Hurst is married. And they tell you this silly thing that Mr. Hurst uses his secret door to appear and all the other guests. So is that a well-kept secret, or is this a line in a Hollywood movie? Now, it's Miss Davies who holds court during the social hour. She's a social butterfly. She's going to make sure you get introduced around. You won't be a wallflower. Our host is in his office on the third floor, running his business empire. 28 newspapers, 14 magazines, 8 radio stations, and 2 movie production studios of his own. He always makes the extra effort to come down through that door right before dinner is served. He'll make a lap of the room and satisfy his curiosity about his guests. You might be first meeting your host for the first time here. Now, why would you meet here if you never met? Chances are you did something newsworthy. Your host wants an interview, and now your story will get serialized in his newspapers and magazines and on the radio. He's always thinking about the business end. But he's offering his arm to Miss Davies, gets a subtle nod to the butler. This is the signal it's time for dinner to be served. You ready for California casual dining? We're going through these not secret doors and into the refectory, and this also ranks pretty high on the wow factor scale. Now, if you would, friends, go all the way down to that far corner. That's actually the best shot from that end towards the fireplace.
Right here.
Send me the photos.
And he likes ketchup and mustard, but it doesn't need to be served from a cut crystal bowl on a silver tray. The original bottles are just fine. Kind of like that myself. If he were alive today, I think we'd have Suzy bottles. What do you think? And he's going to be a little nostalgic. Remember this was at family campground when he was a little guy? Mother used a set of stoneware. He thought it was fun. He brought the same pattern back. And all it is stoneware from England. Booth's real old blue willow pattern. You know the phrase blue plate special? This is the sort of stoneware that coins that phrase. Silver plated stainless steel flatware, no crystal, just simple glass stoneware. He didn't want the table setting to overwhelm you, friends. He wants the big room to do all the talking. Did it work? What do you think of the biggest fireplace in the entire house? The largest and 31 fireplace dates from the 15th century, comes from France. But it's got a little secret. It's too short for this room. See that line up there that undulates up and down like a mountain range? Everything above it going to the top, that's all extension work. They have to fill up the gap or Mr. Hearst would have a big hole in his wall. Not even this man gets everything he wants. But you certainly will for dinner. And despite the late start, we hope that you have an appetite because dinner you see is a 5-course meal. We start with starters, a soup, a salad, and cheese balls. There's always a choice for entree as well as dessert. And the staff will put a copy of the menu underneath the dinner plate. And if they were notified in time, they would also put in at the bottom the title of the movie as well as the stars. And maybe you're being a little nosy like me. Any other questions before we move on? We have only 5 in Victoria. Person wants to have 15. We're hiring. Anybody looking? We have 9 gardeners in the gardens. But if you follow the color in either direction on the beam, the color stops abruptly, almost seemingly in a straight line. This ceiling was too small for this room. And when the artisans had to create an extension, what they copied was the dirty ceiling. We'll do that slide into the open spot. I'm going to stand in front of this fan for the rest of the life. Someone hurry up and invent air conditioning. They had a primitive form of swamp cooler, but it was out where the dog kennels were. The dachshunds had the swamp coolers, the people did not. Roughly 12 years before Christopher Columbus got lost. The ceiling above you has been dated at 1480. Mr. Hearst will choose it for the room because it goes with this general theme of entertainment. If you look at that beams by the hanging lights, you'll see in the little triangle-shaped lozenges, you'll see knights jousting, boar hunting, bullfighting. Down there is a little sailboat for sailing, so ways people entertained themselves in the 15th century, which ties in nicely with the jewel in our tapestry collection. And this is considered one of the finest examples of mille fleurs, or 1,000 flowers style. It gets its name because of all the delicate flowers worked into the background, and it's a noble sport of entertainment, stag hunting. And it's framed on either side by scenes from the Persian dynasties. This is about parties and having fun. Oh, we can't sit in that chair, dear. We can't sit in that one. That one's 15th century. Someone moved the chair that was over there that's supposed to be on the other side of the fireplace. The dynasty is called the Qajar, and this is about parties and storytelling and having fun. The tile work to the left of the tapestry is the entertainment of the Sultana. Right here, the entertainment of the Sultan. So different cultures, countries, languages, religions, and there's one thread that ties us all together if we can give it a chance. Everyone likes to have fun. Everyone likes to have a good time, which is why Mr. Hearst gives you billiard tables to use. And yes, gentlemen, the word is billiards, not pool. Pool's a slang expression. Comes out of the late 30s decade in the heart of the Great Depression, when it becomes a practice of folks. They don't have a great deal of money, but they can pool their money together to rent a table in a billiard hall. And you, my friends, you're going to be playing with Mr. Hirschguest. So we're talking some of the richest names on the planet. J. Paul Getty, Doris Duke, Howard Hughes, Gloria Vanderbilt, and Joseph P. Kennedy. No one's really pulling anything then. Now, Hirsch got wrapped up in business calls after dinner, but Miss Davis has been keeping an eye, and it's creeping closer to midnight now. She's caught several of us yawning. She decides to intervene on our behalf. She'll go back into the morning room, and in a convenient lulling conversation, whisper urgently, "Pops, I think we better start our movie before all of our friends in billiards fall asleep." He likes a good suggestion, and they'll walk right through the doorway we did, trailed by their entourage, their puppies, their miniature dachshunds. Part like the Red Sea for a minute. She has no idea what I'm talking about. We're going to go through this 600-year-old doorway. The keyboard we pass, that is not a piano. That's a Caroline keyboard. The 36 raised keys in the center, they're attached to the bells and the towers in the top of the house. It's how they rang the bells back then. And yes, it is disconnected. And when we enter the largest room in the house, we will abandon the Sears collection and walk on the red carpet like a Hollywood premiere. You, my friends, get to have a seat on lovely state park benches. Please face the screen. I've got about 3.5 minutes of home movie shot by Mr. Hirschguest that includes footage of his private zoo. Now, this is the room where that little guest cottage I pointed out earlier would fit in nicely and still have space left over. So technically, I think this is Mr. Hirsch's man cave.
Universal.
You can part the seed. That was actually Bank of America, Mr. A.P. Giannini. Of course, lots of the Hollywood crowd are here. John Gilbert, his lovely wife Virginia. Dolores Del Rio and Claire Windsor, girls casually dressed to watch a tennis match. And witness the power of Charlie Chaplin, sir. Or not. Maybe Charlie could use a lesson from American Wimbledon champ Bill Tilton. On the right, a 19-year-old Carol Lombard. On the left, the Pantages twins, like the Pantages Theater. And even a champion misses a backhand once in a while. Claire Windsor and Buddy Rogers are going horseback riding, favorite group activity up here. Mr. Hirsch is doing his favorite solo thing, though. Because watch what he does right here. You see that wave? You just watched Mr. Hirsch change his mind. The statue he waved at, it's gone. It's no longer on the property. We don't know where it is. What we do know, he's going to get up now and go give Miss Morgan yet another change order. Now on the right, we'll get a fleeting glimpse of our notoriously shy architect. She doesn't like interviews. When she spots the camera, she ducks behind her own sketchbook. Now a bunch of folks have made their way down to the predator cages of the zoo, and you'll pass this on the journey down. We have the largest private zoo in North America. Warm weather like this would mean twice daily deliveries of ice for Goofus, the polar bear. And here's a fussy birthday gift from MGM and Louis V. Mayer. Check out this high-tech security gate. Watch this. That's called press, okay? And you went through 3 of them to get up the hill. Now back then, you're being driven slowly up a dirt and gravel road. And the zoo's grazing animals are fenced around the road. So imagine your surprise when instead of cows, you spot a kangaroo or a wallaby. Would you stop the car to back up and take a picture? Because I would. Up on the ridgeline, some exotic white fallow deer from India. Sadly, in the late 30s, Hearst had financial problems related to his spending habits during the 30s. I know it's hard to tell, but the zoo was expensive to maintain. When it was closed, most of the animals were given away or sold. We still have about 150 of these Oudads or Barbary sheep on the property. No more impalas, gazelles, or ibex remain. They're all gone. But our most famous residents are the 200 or so zebras. And last night when I left, they were right by the visitor center exits. Look for the funny striped house. I am so glad we don't have llamas and alpacas. Do you know these guys spit?
Puro kami nga.